and welcome to How Do Artists, a show that focuses on a single topic of conversation and asks the question, how do artists live, work, play, run their business, stay inspired, or handle challenges and adversity from an artist's perspective? Our show will speak with a diverse group of artists and creatives, and you, as our listeners, will have a chance to ask your questions during the Q&A segment towards the end of the show. I am your co-host, Ryan Caldwell, musician and producer, and I am joined by co-host Karlana Pedersen, artist and illustrator.
Thank you, Ryan. Our conversation for today is how do artists handle burnout? Our guest today is Christina Lundberg. Christina Lundberg is a writing instructor, coach, mentor, poet, and essayist who lives in the Chicagoland area. Her writing has appeared in several publications and journals, and she authored an academic essay on emotional intelligence that will be released later this month. Christina currently works for the Walden University Writing Center and teaches English courses at the College of DuPage. Christina is the owner of My Page Break, a writing company which supports teachers and student writers in creating their most significant work. Today, Christina will share her personal story of burnout to help others, along with simple techniques on what we can all do to help prevent it. Welcome, Christina. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm doing really well. Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to be on your awesome, beautiful podcast.
Oh. We are so happy to have you. How's your week been? How's everything?
The week has been busy and full, but very good.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yes.
So let's get right into it. Let's first acknowledge we are talking about burnout, and as there seems to be a few different types of burnout. Some psychologists say that there might be maybe 3 major types of burnout, which are like overload, under-challenged, and neglect. Can you share your personal story with us and talk to us about the type of burnout that you experienced, and what did you do, and how did you process that and work through it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm happy to. And as you know, you brought up, burnout is a very big, large topic. And I'm by no means an expert in it, but I do have a story, and I hope that it's helpful and gives people some ideas and some things that they could perhaps relate to, and then maybe investigate and research burnout on their own. Because again, I'm not an expert, but what happened to me, my story all began with moving. So I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and 6 years ago, my husband got an offer for a promotion at his position at his job. And it was a really nice promotion, one that we would consider moving for. And so he was a bit hesitant to embark on this big move. We had a 3-year-old son at the time. And, I thought to myself, I love adventure. I love to travel. I've been to lots of places, really have enjoyed. I studied abroad. I went to England. I've enjoyed all my travels a great deal. Spent some time in Scandinavia. And I just thought, this is a good opportunity for our family to increase our quality of life, have a good opportunity for our son. Like, it's an adventure. Let's give it a go.
Sure.
And so I sort of carried us, in a way. And my husband rose to the occasion and took the job. And it was in Indiana. And so we spent 2 years in Indiana, and that's when I left my teaching job in Minnesota. And I love teaching. I taught writing for quite a few years before we moved, probably 9 years. And my favorite part about teaching is seeing that growth and transcendence and seeing that aha moment for students when they truly get it. Right. And I was teaching in the face-to-face classroom. So we were in Indiana, and I found suddenly my husband was totally engrossed in this new job, and there were a lot of new responsibilities. And I then started looking for new employment myself and getting my son acclimated to Indiana, to Carmel, Indiana. And I got a job at Walden University, which is based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I had sought that job out. I had actually applied 3 times and I didn't get it. And Walden really appealed to me because it was an online environment where you work with students asynchronously. And so I thought, what a perfect job to be a mom, to work asynchronously. Then I could be present for my son. I can stay in my field. Like, this is great. And I keep my connections to Minnesota.
Sure.
So I applied 3 times. And this time, one of the people at Walden actually contacted me and said, we have an opening. We really have enjoyed you interviewing with us, and we'd love to offer you the position. So I was really excited. I thought, this is fantastic. You know, I put in the effort 3 times. This will be great. And what ended up happening is that taking an online position, full-time online, being in a new environment, and then having a young son and a husband that was really involved in work, I suddenly found myself incredibly isolated. And so that is how burnout started to sneak up on me. It wasn't that the amount of work that I had taken on. I'm actually one of those people that loves to hold a lot of plates and do a whole bunch of things, but it was the type of work. It was the isolation of sitting at the computer for 8 hours, having to engage in paper reviews, which is very analytical work that requires a high amount of focus, looking at a lot of doctoral dissertations and giving instructional feedback. Not very many meetings, not very much connection with the team. That was all very limited. So it was super siloed work. Yeah. So I found myself just getting really, really drained. And I thought, like, I've got to keep this up. You know, I've got to keep up my energy. I've got my son, you know, we're in this new environment. I've got to make connections. But by the end of my workday, I was just depleted. And I thought, I've got to figure this out. And it turns out that I did some really good internal work to kind of see, you know, what's wrong here? Is it the job? I actually like the work, but I found out that I wasn't getting like myself, like filled up. I wasn't getting enough energy for myself that could carry me through hours and hours of that kind of asynchronous work. And so I started then on a journey to try to figure out how to resolve and alleviate that for myself. So that's the beginning.
Well, that's exciting.
Wow.
No, I can absolutely identify with that, though. It's one of those things where you don't like, it's like my mom always told me, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know, exactly.
Well, I remember there was a time where I started spending all of my time working down in the studio, and I slowly began to resent it because I just wasn't interacting with anyone. I found I was putting off all of the work I had to do solitarily.
Yeah.
And it was like, and it was the most baffling thing until I was like, oh, I'm just not getting enough time with people.
Yes. And I'll say, Christina, our experiences seem almost identical, only mine was in the reverse. Yeah. And had I not required, I was in a job, I was a photographer at the time, where that was really all I was doing. I wasn't focused as much on my own personal art. I really was in photography. So that is a one-on-one type of job. And I was in a situation where I was forced to acclimate into my environment. I had to figure it out. And so had it been reversed and we were in COVID, oh my gosh, I mean, that would have been a nightmare in terms of being able to just identify what's going on and then trying to figure out how to fix it. Yeah. So once you were at that point where you were in it, what then?
Yeah. So you suffer for so long, right? So I went through this period of just like emptiness and sort of sadness, and I was really trying to figure it out. And kind of by myself because I'm in this new environment.
Right.
And my husband has this job and he was really like acclimating to that and, didn't have a lot of energy at the time. And so I just found myself like the message that I kept getting was like, this, you're on your own. Like, this is your thing. You've got to figure this out. And so I started just really kind of going really deep inside. And I thought, where are the periods of the day where I'm the most happy? And like started to kind of dissect this. And, you could do like these vision things are really popular and mapping and all this stuff. And so for me, being a writer, I just write things down and I make associations on blank pieces of paper to try to understand what's going on, kind of bring from the inside, bring it outside to kind of see. And I found time with my son, I was super happy. I knew I had to work. I knew I really missed that exchange. Like the whole reason I was in teaching was to see that transformation. Sure. And while I was working with students, there was a bit of a removal where I wasn't seeing the human behind the paper. And I can see the growth happening, but that human part is so important for me. I found out.
Absolutely.
And so I've started to see that when I would have a meeting with my boss, when I would have like a team meeting once a month, I would feel good. And I'm like, okay, like I need more meetings. Like I need more like of that conversational exchange. And so that was really helpful to know. And so then I joined a mom's group and went through like all the awkwardness that entails.
Right.
And, but the whole time, what I found was really receptive, kind moms, but most of them were stay-at-home moms. And they could relate to each other on this whole, like, what that world is like. And for me, I had to do all these paper reviews and like, I was working full time. And so I'd have to like fit this in, go to the meeting and then come back and then get my headset on and finish my reviews before I picked up my son. And so my reality and my stress was so different than what they were bonding over, like their common ground, that I found myself still feeling on the outside, but like trying to like connect to a community. And still within the trying and within the suffering, like there was movement, there was forward movement there. And it was helpful because I was able to at least practice connecting with these groups that I never had connected with before in a new town, because then we moved again and we ended up moving to Illinois. And when we moved to Illinois, I was like, okay, like
this time,
I need to join some groups because Walden is such an incredible place. I did not want to leave Walden. The whole time I'd worked so hard for this position and I wanted to be there. So I had to make this work. So I'd have to design sort of a life with Walden, with being a mom, now in another new environment. And how was I going to, in this peripheries, build meetings and connections for myself? Sustain me getting through the siloed kind of isolated type of work. I joined a lot of things.
So what was the strangest thing in retrospect that you joined?
That's a really good question.
What seemed like the best idea on the front end?
Oh man, that is such a good question. The strangest thing. See, everything that I joined, I'm a pretty intentional person. So it was all related to writing or my business. Okay, the one thing I joined some women entrepreneur groups, and they were really cool and fun. And what was weird and strange is that when people found out that I was a writer and a writing teacher, they had all these writing projects kind of coming out of the woodwork that were really obscure that they presented to me to see if I could help them work on. And that was a real surprise. And I thought, wow, there's so many closet writers out there. Like they had different businesses. They were doing other different things, but they had a little memoir going on the back burner that they've never told anybody about. And would I take a look at it, and things like that. And so that was kind of weird and strange in that there was some really interesting stories, but it was unexpected because that was kind of cool, but unexpected.
Wow.
No, that makes a lot of sense though. I mean, whenever you like, I feel like it's always a good idea to, try to go and network like way outside of, I guess, like what your normal field is. Because, I mean, people really get pigeonholed in like networking exclusively inside of their industry and not,
Yeah,
not
that's
quite jumping outside of that, especially to something like an entrepreneurs group, which is just wild cards all over the place.
Yeah.
But, it's crazy the amount of people you find who, I guess it's an advantageous position to be the only person of blank, industry that they know.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's a fantastic place to be.
Now, you had mentioned in your sentence that you, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said when you were going through this process, you knew that you had to figure out this whole thing on your own. How did family play a part in this? And what can people's support system do to help when they see one of their loved ones, or even if they have this issue themselves and are suffering from burnout? What can family and support do to help with it?
That's a great question. So for me in my situation, I had a really clear vision in what this move would mean and do for our family and how it would increase our quality of life and all these things. And I was so determined that I didn't want anything to rock that vision. And so even though it wasn't like totally going as planned, there was a whole bunch of surprises that came my way. I didn't feel comfortable sharing with friends and family that some of the hardships, because I believe so strongly, like nobody was going to stop me. Like I was going to figure this out. I didn't want anybody to judge me.
Right.
I didn't want to hear any of the, are you sure you should have moved? Maybe you should come home. Like these like giving up phrases.
Right.
I just didn't even want to entertain them. And I just thought, I've got this. Like I am going to realize this vision. And I felt like if I had revealed the struggles, that I would have received that. So I think that friends and family, instead of like judging and kind of saying things like, I told you so, because when you move, like those of you that have moved, sometimes people don't want you to move, friends and family, and they feel sort of like abandoned and kind of like, well, you left, so now we're here and we miss you as our friend, but we feel kind of sad that you left. And I think that, true friends and really caring family can support you, believe in your vision, and honor that, and know that there's going to be problems, in transitions, and to say, let me know, what are the problems? What are your pain points? And then be the first one to like lift you up and be like, hey, that sounds real. But look, all the things you're doing, and I believe in you. I know you've got this. Those kinds of words go such a long way.
Oh yeah.
So positive support.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And just that, keep going. If you want this, you can do this. And it really is cool when people come and visit, and like say,
oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's really nice.
It was wonderful when family came out to Minnesota, because we were the opposite. We went from Chicago to Minnesota. And so when family came out, that was always the highlight for us.
Well, especially moving into a new place, because you start out completely isolated.
Yeah.
Yes.
No bones about it. And just, everyone knows that, but it's, it's hard to, you don't know what that's like until you actually do it.
Yeah.
It's true. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it.
Well, exactly. Plenty of people have done it successfully and are incredibly happy.
Yeah.
That's right.
And, along these lines, so, my biggest learning opportunity here is that I learned to speak up. Like I learned in safe environments, I learned how to identify like safe environments, and then to tell my story and to speak up and to share some problems, because what ended up happening is nobody was talking in the writing center at the time that I had moved, and I was going through this, and I felt like a very kind of, you did your job and everybody did a really good job, but people didn't share too much. But what ended up happening is I had a colleague who did a presentation on emotional intelligence. And this was probably 2 years ago.
Okay.
And she started talking about culture, organizational culture, and siloed work, and bringing in these terms and like how to foster culture, like a connected culture.
Yeah.
And all these lights started going off for me. And I was like, oh, like, do you feel disconnected? Do you feel siloed? You know, I just
right.
like asked the question to her, and she was like, yeah, do you? And I'm like, yes. And suddenly I was like, oh my gosh, just like all this relief of energy just started coming. And I got super invigorated to talk to her. And we started these presentations and this research on emotional intelligence, and got the green light from our manager to do presentations. And she ended up leaving. She got a promotion for another organization. But myself and then 3 other colleagues had joined. You know, we had colleagues that joined the group. And we were all starting to share our stories of isolation. And it was so huge for me to be able to share that, and then have other people say me too. And, you know, because you think, oh my gosh, you know, you don't want to rock the boat, or, you know, you don't want to cause any problems. I always want to kind of go above and beyond, and, you know, but then I discovered like, this is a problem beyond me. And I think that we can do something for ourselves to bring the team together and make more connections, and change the culture and bring the culture into more of a connected, belonging type of environment. So once that happened, it translated to my whole life, because I started learning about emotional intelligence, about psychological safety, and how that was so integral to me, to have safe people to talk to that don't judge, that, you know, really care. And then I started being that person in other groups.
Oh, nice.
And creating that for other people. And it's just been, I've never looked back. It's been so helpful.
That's fantastic. Now, you mentioned that you were doing an essay, or you did an academic essay on emotional intelligence, and that you co-authored an essay. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yep. So the emotional intelligence article was all on this year-long initiative that myself and my colleagues did on our presentations on emotional intelligence, for the purpose of creating a healthy organization and in a remote learning environment. And so what we discovered was, to create a healthy organization in a remote learning environment, intentionality was key, to kind of break down the silos, to take risks, to be the person who reaches out and shares their story, and creates meetings to bring people together for that intention of connectivity. You know, in human, like, physical settings, connectivity will often happen organically, because you can, in the room, you can assess each other's energy. And if somebody like puts their head down, you might say like, hey, are you okay? But in a remote environment, that's harder to see. So you kind of have to say, I'm not doing so well today. Like, you kind of you know, there's more of a vulnerability.
You have to be more vocal about it.
Yep. And so modeling that, so people know that's okay, because people will often be safe and not disclose if they're not sure that it's okay to do that. And so we started talking about that, researching it, practicing being vulnerable, and then also really like problem solving. When problems come up, who is responsible to solve those problems? And in emotional intelligence, it's, you know, it's the individual. Like, you're responsible for your needs and your problems, and then you can work with others. You know, you can tell them what's going on, and you can problem solve and work together. But, you know, you really are the one to kind of unlock that sort of, you know, secret code for yourself, and to really find out what your needs are, and then express your needs. And then your needs will then, you know, get met, and you can meet your own needs, or you can ask, you know, I could say, hey, I could really use a conversation just about how you are, and I'd love to share how I am. Karlana, would you like to take a phone walk with me for like 20 minutes, which would be similar to like a coffee break?
Which
And
would be awesome.
yeah, and we can just talk about how we're doing. And, I'd be outside, connect with nature. You got the wind going, and then Karlana could say, I could use that too, but I can't meet that need for you on Tuesday because I'm really busy. But Friday will work. Can you hold that till Friday, and we'll do that? I'm like, absolutely,
Oh yeah.
So there's all these different kind of things you can do, but it often takes like getting really clear with what your needs truly are, and then seeking out to get your need met. And if Karlana can't meet that need, then maybe I'll ask Ryan. Ryan, are you available on Tuesday? I could really use a walking partner. And if that doesn't work, I can put in a podcast. At the very least, we'll call somebody in Minnesota. But that goes a long way.
Yeah.
That's the thing though. It's huge. And it's something that I feel like a lot of people have they've discovered organically just over the quarantine process too.
Yeah.
I realized that I just decided to go and Skype one of my friends, and I had been just working really hard before that, all that month. And then I did that and I was like, oh man, I'm feeling trim all the time. Well, it's because there's not really a social precedent for going and saying, hey, let's do a Zoom call. That's not been a super common part of also talking about burnout has not been that, like, everyone talks about it, but it's never the person who's experiencing it. I think it kind of comes off as a form of weakness.
Right. There's a stigma too. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It makes it feel like you are I don't know, like something's wrong with you because you are experiencing burnout.
But I will say, because of COVID, there has been a lot of much needed attention on mental health and how we process things emotionally, mentally, just to get through COVID. That I think that if there hasn't, it's horrible that COVID is here but if there's any like shining, light through this, it has been the acknowledgement that there's nothing wrong with saying I need help, or there's nothing wrong with saying, you know what, this is not a really good day for me today. And it happens to everyone. And I think that once we flip that switch on how we perceive burnout or mental drain or depression or anxiety or any of the other components that I think COVID has exacerbated over this past year, I think then it's nothing but a wonderful thing.
Right.
And we're starting to see more and more access to having assistance with this. And so it's great to talk with you about this, because I feel that there's not enough people talking about it just on a regular to-do experience. Hey, listen, how's your day? And then being honest, I'm spiraling today or whatever the case may be.
That'd be a fun way to start, like, start your work day. Just send out an email to a few of your colleagues. Oh, I'm spiraling right now. I might miss our meeting. I'm going to have like a little mild panic attack. It's gonna be over before you know it. Don't worry about me.
If you don't say something,
well, then you're just absent. You're a no-call, no-show. That's not
that too. But I feel like just saying it releases something.
Yeah.
It releases something out into the air that you can kind of at least get rid of. You have acknowledged it. Hey, I might be in burnout right now. I don't want to do any of this. And it's okay. I think it's okay, because you're being honest with yourself, right? And you are acknowledging what's happening, and you're not imagining things. It's a real thing. And if you write it down, or you work through it, or you figure out maybe talking to someone, like you said, calling someone, or saying, hey, listen, maybe I will connect with someone that would make me feel better.
Right.
Or talking to someone that's close to you.
Yeah. Well,
and working through that. Yeah.
Well, what I was gonna say is that so we like connecting with your social network, making a new social network. Those are all great ways to alleviate burnout. But what about people who don't have that option?
Mhm.
What's do you
Yeah.
either of you have some good strategies for that?
Yeah, I think that and when I moved, I didn't feel like I had that option. I felt like I had to recreate that. And it wasn't until I was also reading a friend. It was somebody that I had met at a church that we were trying on at the time. I joined a book club, and part of their book club was the Brene Brown Braving the Wilderness.
Mm,
And
Okay.
I was too scared to speak up in that group, like, about, like, I'm really, feeling isolated, I'm depleted, I'm trying to,
right.
do all the things, keep myself going. I didn't have the bravery yet to speak up.
Well, exactly. You don't wanna brave the eye rolls, you know?
I know, right? I didn't wanna brave that judgment,
Okay.
and, but then I read Brene Brown's Braving the Wilderness, and it was like, whoa, like, she changed everything for me because it was, be brave, be vulnerable, tell your story, like, you have nothing to lose, and then this whole idea of self-worth, like, you're a valuable person, and your point of view is needed,
Right.
and that really got me because of all the writing that I've been doing in the writing practice and being a writing teacher, and how often I tell students, people need to hear your point of view. Please find a unique way in. I really care about what you have to say.
Mhm,
Please speak up. That spoke to me, and I thought, oh my goodness. And in that group, I started speaking up, like,
mhm.
hey, here's braving the wilderness. I'm going to be brave here. I am just really feeling empty inside. This move, the asynchronous job, just like my husband and his job, just like, oh my gosh, like, didn't see this coming. And the women around me didn't have that same experience, but they heard me and they saw me. And that helped me suddenly start to move forward. And they expressed kindness, and gave me that space. And then I started to just continue to practice being brave and vulnerable, because I'm like, oh, like, it didn't, like, the sky didn't fall on me, like, I didn't
Right.
get the eye rolls. Instead, I
Right.
got some of that uplifting support that we had talked about before in
Yeah.
a community of strangers.
Right.
But that book was really helpful. And then, other great researchers, psychologists. There's one, her name is Jane Dutton at the University of Michigan, and she specializes in high quality connection. And
Mm,
I found out that connection is so important for me, but it's not any kind of connection. It's that deep, meaningful, I care about you, you care about me kind of connection
right.
that was what I really needed to fill me up. And
Mm,
everybody is different, but that was my secret sauce. And once I started researching her and seeing that she said that it takes 40 seconds for even a stranger to have a high quality connection and fill somebody's spirit up with that positive energy that can change your whole day. And
oh,
that's
yeah.
why, like, some people go to Starbucks and order the coffee from an incredibly kind barista, who will do that, kind of naturally,
Right.
and they'll have a fantastic day, and they pay more for that than the actual drink.
Or, the entire concept of, I think bars actually were one of the biggest parts of or a very big part of that in American culture. You go to a bar and talk to your bartender who knows you
Where
and
everybody
gives you
knows your name,
well,
right?
or at
Yes,
least enough people to make you feel like you're connected.
That's right.
And you don't have to invite them to your house or schedule a Zoom call. And it's also hard to schedule Zoom calls with strangers. The internet has a large history of that being a very bad idea.
yeah.
But no, actually, I absolutely know what you mean, though. I've like even a friend reached out to me today, and I was like, "Aw, it was really nice."
Oh,
Yeah.
that is
Yeah,
sweet.
but it was like just a few messages on Facebook, but it was enough to go and lift my spirits for like the rest of the day.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
There's
Beautiful.
not enough of that. We need more of that.
Well, it requires people to be less self-centered, which is not easy.
Yeah, and like being that person, like I took it upon myself because I thought it's not lost on me, like what that kind of energy exchange can do for somebody and how much that's helped me. So I'm like, that's my decision. I'm going to show up in the world like that. I'm going to be that person. And so when COVID-19 happened, I was just stunned because I'm like, everybody is not everybody, but suddenly a majority of people are in the same boat I'm in terms of remote work. And,
Right.
and I started hearing people say like, oh, I'm just so tired. And, I'm having a hard time getting motivated. And all the light bulbs come on. I'm like, oh, I know what to do, and so I started a collaborative group, for the paper reviews. And now I'm doing that every week. The book club for my son was an intentional step to be that person to provide some community in a
Nice.
meaningful way, over common ground where people can be seen and share what matters to them most. And so, and that's been so cool.
Let's learn a little bit more about that. How are you working with your young writers and teachers to bring about that kind of change?
Yeah, so I'm practicing creating a psychologically safe environment first, because that seems to be the ground to lay for people to build trust, to feel safe, to tell their story, to be seen.
Oh,
Because
what's a psychologically safe environment?
it's where you feel like you can be yourself safely without judgment, and that you will be accepted and appreciated, and your point of view will be a contribution. And that doesn't happen every day, everywhere.
Nah.
No.
It doesn't.
And so I've been really intentional. I taught 3 classes at College of DuPage last semester, and I knew that this is a pandemic. I knew I would be giving extended deadlines, but I also knew that all the classes went remote, and in that remote discussion board, that would be my safe space. That would be where I would create that psychological safety. So everybody needs things to do still, and the students are there trying to get some, meaningful content
Right.
and growth and information. And I thought, this is a really good opportunity for me to create this space, safe environment for them to model it and teach them how to do it for each other. And they did. And I got the feedback, which was so cool. My favorite was at the end of the semester, a student said to me, I don't know how you did it. I don't like writing. I can't believe all the things I wrote this semester and how much I enjoyed reading other people's work and how much I got out of this class. It's like, I have to hand it to you. I don't really know.
That's awesome.
like you tricked her into liking writing?
And I just did it in a very intentional building the students up. I encouraged them to speak up. I asked prompting questions, and then I was there. When they responded, I responded back. Thank you for your contribution. I so appreciate what you said out here about X, Y, and Z. You've really changed the way I think about it. And then more people would, start talking, and I just maintained that the whole semester. And I did workshops where then I said, we are going to help each other grow our writing forward, and that's our job. And so if you can find an element that's really working, celebrate that. If you can find an area where you have an idea to change it and make it better, share that idea. Like we're in a collaborative social support environment here. And the students, they just rose to the occasion. They gave to each other. They gave and received. They understood that learning exchange of how they could show up as writers and support each other and learn from each other. And I was just so thrilled, because writing in college or in elementary school or all the way, through high school, it's a social act because you're writing for the reader. And so to get that reader response is so important, and to feel safe about getting that is so important. And so I just felt so successful, but I had really learned throughout my own processing, my own pain, how to do that for myself, so I could do that now in my classrooms.
Wow. That's incredible. I love those stories. So with your experience as a teacher, What is the difference? Not only being a teacher, but you're a creative as well. What's the difference between the academic burnout versus the creative burnout?
Well, I think one thing I'll say about creative burnout or even creative writing is that, like in poetry, so, well, I'm finding my way into your question. I have so much I want to say. But this book is actually a book that I am working through right now. It's Designing Your Life, and it's by two professors at Stanford, Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. And they teach this class at Stanford, designing your work life, how to thrive and change and find happiness at work. And they say that people fall into three pillars in terms of happiness, like kind of achieving happiness at work. Money, like financial, is important. A certain level for everybody is different. The other one is influence. And so like your, people appreciating your contributions, and teaching is very high in influence. And then creativity. And they claim that there is a creative column, and everybody has needs this sort of fuel in that creative area. And then everybody can rate themselves in these pillars. Maybe money is low, influence is high, maybe creativity is high, and they can change over time.
Right.
So for me, creativity, that poetry is like that sort of inner connection with the self, and journaling and reflecting and kind of finding those internal transformations. And sometimes if you're having burnout, you just might need either to let go of your inner critic, the judgment, create a safe space for yourself, kind of,
Sure.
inside as well. And then also sometimes finding inspiration and knowing that inspiration, it's not really helpful to wait for it to come to you and to focus on things you can't control, but to really hone in on seeking out inspiration for yourself and what you can control. And so, like, perhaps if I was feeling burned out from creative writing and there was nothing really filling me up, I would probably seek out inspiration, and I would go to maybe an art show of Karlana's and kind of look and see how the visual language I could approach it in a new way, my writing in a new way, and get inspired. Maybe
Sure.
I would go to a show that Ryan was playing in, and I could listen to some of the cool music that he was doing, and I could think about the guitar as a voice and find a new way in. But keep an open mind, think about what I can control, and also think about my purpose. Like, is my purpose to be a writer? And do I want to show up in the world as a poet? And anytime I ask myself that question, it's, yeah, like that's a big reason why I feel like I'm here. And, is to interpret the world in that sensory way. And so getting, if my purpose isn't to write, I might just say, hey, I'm burned out. I don't know. It's not my purpose anymore. That season is come and gone. I think I'm going to take up photography or try something else in that creative sector. But
underwater
for me,
basketball.
it's always writing. Yeah.
No, that is interesting though. And actually that was something I was thinking about, before our talk today is like I like to call it terminal burnout, but it's, it's a little that's a little bit morbid. But it's where the burnout you're experiencing just goes and ends all of your passion for that, which is what everyone wants to avoid. That's the worst type of burnout, where you are completely burned out. There's no saving it throughout the plant.
Yeah, how do you stop that?
So how does that come on? Where does that come from?
Well, that's the thing. Well, I think anytime I've seen that, it's mostly all of the normal stuff with burnout, but it's just left neglected. It's not talked about. It's not expressed. It's not treated. And then, eventually it'll go and take all the passion you would have experienced out of something.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, what was it? That almost happened to me with piano in college.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I played piano in some recording sessions, but I went in there as a freshman on piano and then switched to voice after the first semester. Because, just how it was approached in that setting was not at all how I had passion for the instrument.
Mm-hmm.
What brought you back though?
Time, neglect, mostly.
Time and neglect?
Well, yeah,
Everything we're talking against?
Well, that's the thing though. It's if you keep trying to ram your way through that problem and, kind of brute force it, that's when you lose all the passion. That's where you find, there was a person in my fraternity in college who he was an exchange student from China, and he was working on piano, but he had no passion for it in any way, shape, or form. It was a job. It was a career he was pursuing. It wasn't fun. Why would that be fun? Yeah. So, but it's just that sort of thing, which is what everyone wants to avoid. But yeah, no, for me, I just kind of, I put it down. I let it, I wrote off my laurels. I didn't really work on it anytime I was using it. But then eventually I kind of found my way back to it after college, and once the pressure was off. And I think that's a big thing I've found with like my burnout cycles is just, it's amazing how much better you feel when you stop trying to go and like push your way through a wall. You're like, oh, I can just not be putting so much pressure on that. It's crazy. It's almost like an on and off switch. You can just say, you don't need to do that right now.
Yeah.
No one's got a gun to your head.
I'm really examining my personality through this. Because that's not me at all. I put the horns on and I'm gonna break through this. So that's been my mode of operation is what? Burnout? Fizzle out? What? I'm just going to figure this out and drive harder at it. I mean,
well, and it's like that's been a great solution for so many people. But I also fear that's where the concept of burnout as a form of weakness comes from too, because you can't keep going, you can't keep doing this. Well, clearly you don't love it that much.
You're absolutely right. There is a flip side to that, and it is not every personality that could or should do that. Mm-hmm. It just so happens I know my personality type where if I feel that that's what's happening, I'm comfortable with doing that. But no, not everyone is, and I would never expect anyone else to be like that unless they knew, I'm a little bit older, so I kind of know who I am in a lot of this, and I've been there before, been there, done that, burned out before, and I know what I needed to do to get through it. Mm-hmm. And it's not, the horns on the concrete is not for everyone. So, but with that said, there is something to be said for taking a step back and evaluating what's going on so that you can sort of map a plan. I always feel better if I have a plan. It doesn't matter what's going on. If I can write it down, think about what is, where I am in the present and what I need to do, and just like sort of create whether the plan works or not. That's for that's for time to tell.
Yeah, having a plan makes you feel better.
Yeah, but me waking up in the morning and saying, "Oh, okay, I know these past 12 months with COVID haven't been so great, so I know why." Because I didn't do this, didn't do that, or this didn't happen, or that didn't happen, or this whole series of things did happen. So now I've got it all on paper. So now I can say to myself, personally, okay, well, now I've identified, I've evaluated and I've identified that I've been spiraling. Okay, now what am I going to do about it? So that's kind of how I work through it.
Oh yeah.
And if I sit down and write it down and then create, a process for how I'm going to do it, then I do feel better. I think there's like some sort of dopamine release connected to how we relate with people, having that same dopamine release with certain activities that we do too. Like, because I feel like just as happy doing that as I do sometimes talking to friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So for me, I have to be careful that I don't use that instead of talking.
In place of friends, right?
In place of friends.
I can relate to what you're saying a great deal. And in fact, this concept you're saying of like powering through is a method, right? Like there's so many methods. And it's like, what is the goal? Is the goal to do all the things every day and just get all the things done? Or is the goal to, what happened to me is there was this nagging suffering that kept coming up that wasn't going away. And so I was like powering through doing all the things on really low energy, and it just wasn't going away. And so finally, it's like I had to kind of turn to it and be like, okay, suffering, I see you. What can I do? What can I do differently?
Clearly, you can't be ignored.
You're not going away, And so this whole idea, and Karlana, I think you touched on it really well, of like creative problem solving and like approaching it with curiosity. And
is that what it's called?
Yeah. And coming up with a new plan. And, being curious to be like, okay, I've got this problem. And within this problem, there are these parameters that I have to work within. And creatives are so good at working within boundaries and parameters and coming up with really beautiful, fascinating thoughts, ideas, things. And even the process of doing that, right? Like just talking it out, like these are these boundaries, how can we advance this forward, really fuels me too. And like, to your point, like writing it out, talking it out, it's so life-giving. And so I think that approach of creative problem solving is awesome. And being okay with looking to find new ways to do things that could work for you in a better way, in a healthier way, in a way that little suffering inside for me is like, I'm good now, like, okay, like, because energy was going to that and it was like pulling me down. And now this little suffering is, we're good. It's like growing, I'm fine. And now I can see it when it comes up for myself because, we're human. So, things will happen.
You can find the patterns. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, how can I creative problem solve this one this time? I'm like, what do I need? I'm like, I need that talk with Karlana, or like, I need that time with my son, just like hanging out, playing on the floor, I need some yoga,
Because it's not always easy to know what you need.
Yeah. Or I need to create something with other people,
Yeah.
But that is so interesting that you said that, because you said your suffering was being ignored and it still takes up your energy. Yeah. So it's like this little plant that is still pulling your energy and everything that you're doing. And you're sort of like kind of pushing that plant over to the side in the corner. And it's like, I'm gonna still take this energy because I'm growing. So that connected with me. I completely get that. At some point, you have to look at what it is and acknowledge it and say, okay, all right, I know this is a piece I have to work on. I know this is a piece about myself that I have to figure out how to resolve, because it could be what's causing my burnout. So if I'm going to address why I feel the way I do when I come and I write music, or staring at, I have a canvas over there that I've been staring at.
Speaking of burnout and writer's block,
right there.
Oh yeah.
On my wall.
Don't worry. I feel like everyone experiences it on different levels. I have some things that I haven't recorded or worked on because they just, somehow they've always just been at the bottom of the to-do list. Not sure why that happened.
Maybe they don't fit your purpose, or maybe you haven't found how they connect to what you really want to do.
Well, and regardless of why you're experiencing burnout, I think, just as a message to our viewers and our listeners, that talking with people about it in a psychologically safe space can help a lot, no matter what burnout you're experiencing.
Absolutely. I think that's exactly right.
And with great remorse, I have to say that we are nearing the end of our scheduled time block. So might we wrap it up? Oh wait, I'm doing the closing. Anyhow, Christina, Is there anything you want to plug? Is there anything, anywhere people can find you?
Yeah, and I just want to say quickly that if the social environment, the social friends, and trying new things with strangers doesn't work, there are fantastic psychologists and professionals out there that can really help people a great deal. So I do promote them as well, and doctors. But yeah, you can reach me at mypagebreak.com. I'm doing a tutoring, coaching, writing service right now it's 30 minutes for $30. I'm working with 4th graders through 12th graders on anything they want to do in regards to writing. And again, helping them build a healthy relationship to their writing so they can be seen and their point of view can be out in the world and people can say, hey, that really matters. I care about what you have to say.
And say that website again.
It's mypagebreak.com, and my email is Christina, CHRISTINA @mypagebreak.com.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a pleasure talking with you. I just loved our conversation, and I hope it has helped anyone who's listening to our show. And thank you. Thank you for your guidance and your advice and for your entertaining Ryan and I. So thank you for joining the How to Artist live stream podcast. And on behalf of myself and my co-host, Ryan Caldwell, we would like to say so long until next time, same place. Bring your questions and your curiosity, and we will see you then.
Thank you both. Love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.